It's official, Intel's next generation desktop CPUs are here. I'm talking specs, performance, and more. And of course, this is a huge release because it not only comes with the name change from the Core i series to Core Ultra, but it also brings a giant architectural change. Specifically, no more hyper-threading. Of course, if you follow this channel, you already know that, as well as a lot of what I'll cover, because the leaks were once again spot on. Now, if you aren't already subscribed, yet you love PC hardware, you've got to fix that right now and click that subscribe button. Don't worry, I'll wait. Okay. Now that you corrected that, let's get right to the story. Starting things off, as you can see, this is in fact the Core Ultra 200S series. And let's just get right to the specs. As you can see, Intel is officially releasing 5 CPUs at first, with the Core Ultra 9 285K at the top. Then we have the Core Ultra 7 265K. Then we have the 265KF, and obviously that F means that it doesn't come with an iGPU. Then we have the Core Ultra 245K and 245KF. Now, moving on to specs, you'll pretty quickly realize that, like I said, a lot of the leaks were pretty much spot on. This one is a 24-core and yes, 24-thread CPU. Because, like I had discussed in a leak quite a little while back, yes, Intel is completely done with hyper-threading. This one comes with 8 P cores and 16 E cores. And then it comes with 4 GPU cores. And then, something you may not have expected, it actually comes with its own NPU. Though it obviously isn't all that impressive at just 13 TOPS. But in contrast to AMD's Ryzen 9000 CPUs, yeah, those don't have one at all. Though, obviously, given the fact this is desktop, you'd almost certainly be better off using a GPU anyway, but I digress. Then we actually have, you can see that yes, there actually is a regression in clocks. The 285K gets up to 5.7 GHz. Then as we move down to the 265K, this one comes with 20 cores and 20 threads, once again 4 GPU cores, 13 TOPS for the NPU, and just 5.5 GHz clocks. Then obviously the 265KF, the exact same, it just doesn't have an integrated GPU. Then finally we move down to the Ultra 5 245K. This one is a 14-core, 14-thread CPU with, once again, 4 integrated GPU cores, 13 TOPS NPU, but this one is just 5.2 GHz. Then obviously the 245KF, the same thing minus the iGPU. Next up, we have a full new socket with the 800 series chipsets. This is the LGA 1851 socket, and it comes with 48 PCI Express lanes, with 20 of those being PCI Express 5.0. Moving on, we have memory, and this officially supports up to DDR5 6400, as well as up to 48 gigabytes per DIMM, for a maximum capacity up to, depending on the motherboard of course, 192 gigabytes. And it supports UDIMM, CUDIMM, SODIMM, CSODIMM, pretty much everything. Oh, and it also comes with support for ECC. Next up, let's talk performance. And as you can see right off the bat, we have single-threaded performance, and at least according to them, overall, they do beat out AMD's 9950X. According to this, it's a geo mean of 8% single-threaded performance versus prior gen, and 4% single-threaded performance versus the competition, i.e. the 9950X. Now, this is where things get very interesting because now we have multi-threaded performance, and once again, I do have to say, according to this, and the only reason why I say that is simply because I've definitely found some major issues with Intel's slides in the past, though I do have to say that as of late, AMD slides haven't been much better. Basically, I always suggest you wait for third-party reviews, but if we're going off of this, it does look like Intel's new CPU absolutely beats AMD's brand new Ryzen 9 9950X. When we look at the performance, you can see according to this. Now, I will say that the baseline, so where you're actually getting these performance differences from, is versus the 14900K, so you definitely want to take that into account simply because obviously the 9950X typically wins anyway, but still, this is a pretty nice jump. As you can see in Geekbench 6 versus the 14900K, we're looking at 11%, then Spec Rate 2017, 14%, Cinebench 2024, 18%, 3D Mark 19%. Once again, if these hold up, it really isn't bad at all. And in fact, according to them, the geo mean is 13% faster versus the competition, i.e. the 9950X. And it actually gets even better, because also according to Intel, this new monster Ultra 9 285K not only beats the 9950X, but it does so at lower wattage. In fact, as you can see right here, according to this is Cinebench 2024 multi-core test versus the 14900K, it's actually able to get the same performance at half the power. And of course, that's a huge deal because, as many of you know, Intel's CPUs had a major problem with power draw. And at least according to this, it definitely looks like they fixed that. Moving on, they actually kind of go over a summary of all of this. When it comes to performance, they're claiming up to 19% more multi-threaded performance versus previous gen, and then up to 58% lower package power. And here is where things start taking a bit of a turn for Intel. As you can see, we're going to start talking about gaming performance just to let you know, but right off the bat, you'll likely notice that it's saying, yeah, one giant leap in gaming performance, per watt. They're not saying this is a giant leap in gaming performance in general, just gaming performance per watt, which, like I said, Intel does have an issue with that, but there's a reason they're doing this. Either way, we'll kind of quickly go over this. You can see that this is the, once again, Core Ultra 9 285K, and it's comparing it to the 14900K, and a lot of it's on par, some of it's down, some of it's up, but it's able to achieve this at a significant reduction in wattage. Obviously, that 165 watts is up too. You can see it, it's just in this one game right here, but there's also 58 watts down right here in Total War Pharaoh, 34 watts, 136 watts. So this is definitely a big reduction in power. Unfortunately, it's also at least a very, very slight reduction in performance. As you can see, yes, I actually went over this slide yesterday, but this is obviously it in English. As you can see, the 14900K with the geo mean, we're looking at 264 FPS versus, yeah, we're technically talking pretty much right on par. I mean, we're talking very little difference, but it at least is a difference. I mean, at 260 something FPS, 3 FPS is completely nothing, but we're still talking about a new generation. With that said, the fact that they were able to do this with such a drop in system power is still very impressive. Moving on, you can see these are the different wattage drops per game with a geo mean of 73 watts. Another way that they've actually done really well here is that you can see that it's also an average 13 degrees C cooler package temps versus last gen. And I definitely say that is something AMD needs to work on, but hey, we've got it right here. Unfortunately, then we start seeing quite a bit of bad news, because when they compare it to the 9950X, you can see they're trying to say, okay, it's right on par, and it likely is, but the problem comes down to the X3D chips. Now, here they do compare it to the 7950 X3D, and it does look like overall it loses. I mean, we're talking the best that they show is 15% win versus a 21% loss. And of course, these are curated by Intel, so they're likely better case scenarios, unless, you know, they really are trying to be fair here. But regardless, the problem is that pesky 7800 X3D. If you are a gamer, that simply is the absolute best CPU to get. It's pretty much the best gaming CPU out there, and it's significantly cheaper than, well, than the Core Ultra 9 285K. Plus, let's not forget that if the leaks are right, AMD has a 9000 X3D chips coming, so those could potentially even beat it, well, even more. With that said, that's only if we're talking gaming. If, for example, you do maybe even a little bit of content creation, but quite a bit of gaming, or especially if you do a lot of content creation or really just anything that requires a ton of cores, more professional workloads, this starts looking significantly better, especially when we're talking that lower power draw. So really, it just depends on what you want to do. Next up, there is a little quick one that I do think is a really nice comparison that shows that the Core Ultra 7 265K, yes, it does lose by 5% in gaming versus the 14,900K, but it does it with 15 degrees Celsius lower temps and up to 188 watt lower system power. Lastly, we have pricing and availability, and for the pricing, as you can see, prices are very similar to last gen. I believe the 265K is a little bit less than the i7, but overall, it's about what we would expect, and I'll definitely say that it should push Intel to make their Ryzen 9000 CPUs significantly cheaper. And as far as availability, these are set to go on sale October 24th, and I will say that I'll have affiliate links to these down in the description below for when they're released. So while that does it for today, what do you think about Intel's new Core Ultra 200 desktop series processors? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. And as always, have a great day.